Hi BC family, welcome to your midweek devotion. This week I wanted to talk to you guys about my favorite chapter in the Psalms, which is Psalms 23. And it's something that I try to read every day and meditate on every day because every time I read it, I see it in just such a unique way and in a way that I can apply to my everyday life. And I just wanted to share some of the things that I see sometimes throughout that chapter and just encourage you to also read the chapter on a daily basis. So the psalm starts off strong with "The Lord is my shepherd." And I want you to notice that it doesn't say a shepherd. It says the Lord is my shepherd, mine, yours. And that part is really important to note because it means he is for you. He's our shepherd. And that just really, when I meditate on that, it resonates with me that he is for us. He wants the best for us. He is our shepherd. Right? He shepherds us. And it continues on with, he feeds, guides, and shields me and protects me, and I shall not lack. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside the still and restful waters. And I see that as he makes me rest and leads me in peace. Still and restful waters. That's a special kind of peace. That's that kind of peace that transcends all understanding. And it mounts guard and garrison over our hearts and minds. It's that peace that we can walk in that other people are like, how are you peaceful in the midst of what's happening and what you're going through? And in the world, that's still and restful waters. But my favorite verses come around verse 3 and 4. It says, he refreshes and restores my life. I mean, just waking up every day and saying that part of the verse is so important. Thanking God that he refreshes and restores our life every day. You lead me down the path of righteousness for your name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear or dread no evil, for you are with me. Your rod to protect and your staff to guide, they comfort me. So I wanted to camp right here at this verse for a moment. It says we walk through the valley of the shadow of death. And I really like this part because even when I'm going through a hard time or a season or busyness or grief or frustration or tiredness, this verse reminds me that it's only a shadow. It's an image, but it's not my reality. And I like to be reminded of that all the time. Think about when kids go to sleep at night, or even adults, and they're in a dark room and suddenly their mind starts to play tricks on them with the shadows on the walls, right? I know for my kids, I get, Mom, come in, there's a person or there's a spider. And then what happens? You go in there and you turn on the light and you see it for what it really is. Just a stuffed animal, just a fan, just a lamp, right? And you're able to show them the reality of what's there. The shadow wasn't real. It was only a shadow projecting something false that our minds believed and causes us to fear. Isn't that what happens, right? They lay down, they see the shadow, they think it's something, they believe it, and then fear takes over and they react to it. But when you turn on the light and you shine the light on it, they see it's not what they thought it was, and there was no reason to fear, right? And I like attributing that to life because the same is true in life. When we're going through the valley or hard places, it's only a shadow that causes our mind to believe it is real. That's why it's so important to keep with God, keep in the Word, because when we shine the light of God on it, when we shine God's light on the situation, on the problem, then we get to really see what our reality really is. So I'll put it into a context. Our reality is that we're healed and whole, not riddled with disease. Our reality is that we're more than enough, not barely making it by. We're protected on all sides. We're the head and not the tail. We will run and not be weary. You see that? But in what we see in the dark, in this world, in the darkness, it looks like we're sick, we're down, we're paycheck to paycheck, but we have to remember that that's just a shadow. It is not our reality, right? Another thing that I like about this verse is that if you have a shadow, then you have to have light. You can't have a shadow without light. Light is there. It's the only way to get a shadow. So I love that because it reminds me that God is always present. He's always there. Even when we're going through our darkest times, this verse is a great reminder that God is there because light is always present with a shadow. It also reminded me of Priscilla Schreier's Devo Awaken. There was a part in there where she talked about how she was flying from London to Johannesburg, and she was getting ready to close her eyes. It was the dead of night, it was pitch black, and then they went through some clouds and suddenly, boom, it was blue skies and bright sunlight. And what only moments before had been pitch black darkness was now big, bright sunlight, and it was 3:48 a.m., the middle of the night. but she was full of sunlight here, but yet these were the darkest hours of night just moments ago over there. And she felt God put this on her heart. And I just wanted to quote this part of the book. She said, "Even the darkest hours of the night and of our lives have a bright side in him." And I like that because it really puts into perspective verse 4 of Psalms 23 of walking in the valley of the shadow of death, right? She went on to say, "You may not see the rays of his handiwork from this vantage point, but a simple shift in perspective will reveal the brightness of his hope, penetrating the most ominous and threatening clouds." I loved how she said that, how she said it's a shift in focus. It's a shift in perspective, right? You might not be able to see it from the vantage point. When you're in the valley, you might not be able to see the rays of the sun. You're just seeing the shadow part. But a shift in perspective. When you flip on a light switch in the dark room, it shifts your perspective, doesn't it? What once looked like a scary person, you see is a teddy bear sitting in the corner of the room. So you can now go back into the dark knowing what is really there, even though in the natural, in the dark, it's not what it looks like. Even in our hardest moment of any day, it's a reminder that God is still present. Daniel 2:22 says, "He knows what is in the darkness, and the light dwells in him." Right? I love that. So the next part in verse 4 of Psalms 23 says, "You are with me, your rod to protect and your staff to guide, they comfort me." This reminds me of light switch. He is a light switch. He's our light switch. When the shadow seems so real, the doctor's reports, the aging family members, the strife in our home, the busy, the income, he is our light switch. He shines the light to what is true reality in him, and he protects, guides, and comforts. When I flip on the light switch for my kids, they're suddenly comforted that it wasn't what they had thought, right? So when we go to God in those moments, and we dive into his word, it's like flipping on a light switch, and he shows us what truth is there, what's really there, so that when we turn back off the light and go back into the world and into our day, we remember what our reality is. And we continue in Psalms 23:5. It says, "You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil, and my cup runs over." I love this too because it says, "You prepare a table before me." It's already prepared. Even though the enemy, the storm, the challenge is present, it's already done. God's already there with answers. And this connects so much with the above verse about walking through the valley of the shadow of death. It may look bad, but God has already prepared what we need. But that's part of that perspective switch, right? Shifting your focus, your vantage point. We have to choose to sit at the table, to sit with God and his truth and his promises, even if all we see is the dark and the enemy. We have to choose to be at peace, strong in him. Those are those still and restful waters. It says that you anoint my head with oil. And when you research Bible times and all the times that they anointed head with oil, oil had a sanctifying and cleansing property. And when oil was poured on someone's head, they had set apart that object or that person as a blessed object of the Lord. King David was anointed. He was set apart as blessed by God. So it says he prepares a table before us and anoints our head with oil. He is setting us apart as blessed. And that is an important reminder every day to remember that God has set us apart as blessed, right? The verse continues with, "My cup runs over." This is a sustained blessing, a constant blessing. It's not just I sip the drink and now it's half full, my blessing's half full. No, it wasn't just filled to the top and nothing more. It was overflowing. So when I sip out of it, it's still continuing to flow. I'm not draining it. I can't drain it. It's a sustained blessing. And verse 6 ends this chapter with, "Surely or only goodness, mercy, and unfailing love shall follow me all the days of my life. And through the length of my days, the house of the Lord and his presence shall be my dwelling place." And I love how this ends. As you wake up and go about your day, when you walk out your door and when you go through the mundane or the busy or the crazy or the hard, goodness, mercy, and unfailing love are with you. They follow you. They're following you. That's what it says. That's the favor of God, and it's following you wherever you go. And I love this next bit. "And through the length of days, the house of the Lord and his presence shall be my dwelling place." You see this phrase, length of days? There, you see it another time in Proverbs 3:2. "For length of days and years of a life worth living, and tranquility inward and outward, and continuing through old age till death, these shall they add to you." When you first read that, you think, oh, I get long life. But length of days does not mean long life. Length of days is a day's length. A length in a daytime, from the time the sun rises to the time the sun sets. So when the verse says, "Through the length of days," through the entire day, the house of the Lord and his presence, is where I dwell. It's where you dwell, right? And if you look at Proverbs 3:2, I love this part of it. If you look at it, for length of days will be added to you. So length of days will be added. I take that to mean that yes, we have 24 hours in a day. But when you have the favor of God in your life, when goodness, mercy, and unfailing love is following you everywhere that you go, when you recognize He is your shepherd, my shepherd, and He has prepared a table before me in the presence of my enemies, and He prepared everything despite what it looks like, you realize that you can accomplish 30 hours worth of stuff in a 24-hour period. It's those moments when people say, how'd you get all that done? Or you realize you accomplished so much. It's adding length of days to you. It's extending your time throughout the day. God is so amazing that way. And if you really pair it with Proverbs 3:2, it says, for length of days and a life worth living. He has added to you a life worth living, and it is filled with peace, tranquility, inward and outward, and will continue throughout the whole of your life. That is what He adds to you when you say, the Lord is my shepherd. So as you go about your week, I recommend reading Psalms 23 every day with new eyes so that you can view your circumstances with a renewed perspective. He is your shepherd and He is for you. Have a great week.